Hello and welcome to Homebrew a la carte. Our special today is Kurohi. I'm your host, Sean, aka Scrobbins or Arbitrary and Delicious. Thank you for joining me in this podcast, and thank you to MT for his immortal art and the musical stylings of Raftronaut that play me in. Please join my Discord to join the community and participate in discussions such as episode comments, state of homebrew topics, and collecting stories. Other homebrew communities I recommend are the Video Game Sage Discord, which is great for technical discussion and promotion without judgment, and the Homebrew Game Club Discord, which is a fantastic general hangout for the scene. Let's start today with what I've been up to. The main update is that I've been laying the groundwork for the 2027 NES Homebrew calendar. I've got all my spots filled and am waiting for all the devs to send me their materials before I start designing the layouts. At one point, I was tossing around the idea of making a Game Boy homebrew calendar in collaboration with GB Studio Central and a broader Sega homebrew calendar, but with GBSC going dormant and the Sega homebrew community so diffuse, I wasn't confident those audiences would be as interested in the effort. But time will tell, and there's always next year. On to gaming news to report. BeatScribe released his Midwestern Math music cart for the Game Boy Color, available on his Bandcamp and Etsy pages. If you haven't listened to BeatScribe, his music is wonderfully atmospheric, with a sound you could close your eyes and lose yourself to. Appy the Cat is a cat-themed platformer from Los Pat Meridas, not associated with Pat Morita Team, for the NES. It was a limited run sold through eBay. Hotel S is a visual horror game for the Game Boy Color by Kai Games, available on their Booth store. As an overseas seller, you'll need an intermediary such as Buyee to help make the purchase. Hobobot is a puzzle platformer for the Game Boy by Gradual Games, available through eBay. It's currently sold out, but will likely restock soon. Metal Miracle for the Game Boy Color and Old Voyager for the NES arrived in backers' hands from Kickstarter. If you missed out and want a copy, you can get Metal Miracle from patmoritateam.com and Old Voyager from daliangames.com. Temple Fortune's Famicom demo is in the hands of some fans from ITG Soft. This is a lavishly illustrated fortune-telling game in development. And as I type this, Pachi Pals for the Game Boy Color just opened pre-orders through Incubate Games. This is a Pokemon-like game with monster catching and pinball aspects. There's lots of Kickstarter news to get into. Let's get to the elephant in the room. Retro Game Forge is live. This is the big developmental leap for Nestmaker that Joe Granato has been hyping for some time. It's already going gangbusters, and like Nestmaker, I hope a loving community will form around it to make it thrive and deliver a continuing flow of enthusiastically made games. There was also some enthusiasm for Homebrews monoboards. However, after their campaign's success, the creator messaged backers of a coming refund due to an issue. I don't doubt the integrity of Homebrew. This is a good effort to be responsible and ultimately deliver a valuable product to developers while likely navigating the labyrinth of Kickstarter's bureaucracy. In the space between episodes, I missed reporting on ITG Soft's Horror Tai Ching for the Famicom and NES, but this interactive horror story looks promising and hopefully will still be available on their website in the future. Bitspace 2 is a stunningly colorful platform game for the NES, following a Commodore 64 predecessor. With simple graphics, the game can pack as much as possible into color and sound and gameplay, letting your imagination go delightfully wild. Froggy's Adventures for the Game Boy Color is an action platformer game. The graphics are rough looking and is the dev's first Game Boy effort that I'm aware of. There's Hobo Aldo's Halloween Adventure for the NES, a Mario-like platformer with some elaborate designs. Hobo Aldo is an odd character between his name and how he behaved in prior games. That gives me pause, but otherwise it's a nice-looking game. Matt Christensen Media Mayhem doesn't get the benefit of the doubt. This Game Boy Color game celebrates a right-wing talking head and builds a game around his talking points and the kind of mean-spirited attitudes that pass for humor among his followers. It even includes a minigame of the dev's past Learning Center game that mocks Somalis. This is a game that supports a troll. I made the mistake of messaging the developer a while back to obtain a figurine for one of his past games, despite not wanting the game itself since I collect homebrew figures. That was a mistake, and in case it ever comes up, I just want to recognize the hypocrisy of reaching out to a dev that I criticize to acquire something. I'm aware that I did it, and I own up to it. On a more positive note, another campaign that's coming up as I wrote this, the Kickstarter for Beyond the Pins, the second frame, which just launched for the NES. It was the subject of my first podcast episode and is the follow-up to a wonderful and rare game, so you should back it now. For my op-ed column, today I'm going to talk about beta testers. They are an important part of a game's development as devs need fresh eyes to find bugs and work through ways to improve the game that they didn't notice. I've had the opportunity to be a beta tester for a number of homebrew games over the years, and I hope I've had help to make some good games even better. But I don't envy the developers who must sift through that feedback regardless of how welcome it is. As a tester, I've noticed a handful of people who seem to take their role a little too far and veer off the assignment. They tend to fall into two groups. The first group is people who don't understand the context of the game they're playing, such as what it might be an homage to, or the console it's for, and to offer feedback that reflects clear ignorance of that history. You try to be graceful, but you can only hold it in for so long as people look at a Mario-like and continually get confused what they're supposed to do with a pipe on the screen. I think these people have played too many modern mobile games that spoon-fed them with arrows and instructions that didn't require independent thought and need things to be made way too easier. It's for the NES. NES hard means something. I have to wonder how you even found the game you asked to test. The second group is the polar opposite. They're supposed experts in this type of game and want to see the underlying code and a lecture the developer about the statistics they know about similar games before they've played a minute of it. Suddenly it's less playtesting the developer's game and more, here's how you can make it my way. It's frustrating when I'm trying to discuss my feedback with the developer and then another tester, someone who's not on the development team, jumps in to talk to me about their thoughts based on their supposed expertise. You're not the developer. Why are you responding to my question? Butt out. These people often have no known projects, especially for the console this homebrew was made for, and they notoriously spam in the share your work channel or Discord of the same game that they've played around with for 4 years with no real progress. So they latch onto this developer who actually is going to make something in the hopes that their fingerprints will be on it, since their own thing is stagnating. It's frustrating. Anyway, this month's chapter of Storytime with Scrobbins is going to be about the origins of Video Game Sage and the blog that preceded this podcast. The beginnings of this podcast stem from my blog, A Homebrew Draws Near, on VGS, which began as a spiritual successor to Nintendo Age in 2019. Nintendo Age dissolved after Dane sold the forum to Go Collect, which hollowed out the site and replaced it with nothing. Several of Nintendo Age's staff saw the writing on the wall well in advance and set up VGS so members would have a community to go to. I joined NA in its twilight days and joined VGS at its inception. I was fairly active, even taking over the currently available Homebrew thread from Bo and turning it into what's now my Homebrew Almanac and Homebrew on the Horizon threads. The VGS staff took note of this engagement and invited me to join them. I felt that I should step up my engagement even more. But how? Fellow homebrewer staffer Chris, aka Deadeye, had started a blog, soon-to-be podcast, that revisited classic homebrews. It's called Homebrew in Focus. You should definitely check it out. I thought it would be fun to complement his efforts in the other direction, highlighting newer games. That, plus my abiding love for the Dragon Warrior games, made the title A Homebrew Draws Near a perfect fit. Now enough about me, let's get into Kurohi! An early tease of this game came from a February 18th, 2026 tweet in which Sergio shared that while he was waiting on art, this game was completed a year earlier. On April 7th, 2026, Kurohi launched on Kickstarter. By the campaign's end, 691 backers pledged more than $45,000, breaking all stretch goals, including an expanded hub area, collectible items for backers, expanded cutscenes, point and click story segments, expanded NPC dialogue, and an expanded final sequence. Backer tiers included the game as a digital download, Steam key, cart only, or complete in box, the soundtrack in digital form on CD or cassette, your name in the manual, a test cart prototype, the ability to become an NPC, and an executive producer role with the ability to create a bonus stage. So with all that in mind, let's jump in with Sergio. So welcome, Sergio. Great to have you on with me. Thanks for coming on.
Well, hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Before we get started, I guess a great place to start is to sort of introduce you. Tell us about who you are,
Mhm.
what's your background, how you came into homebrewing, and what's the origin of Sergio and the Holograms, as well as more recently Softenary Studios.
Okay, yeah, I know there's a lot to unpack there, but I'll start with the homebrew stuff. I think for me, it started back in 2011 with Nintendo Age. There was an older forum that existed back then called Nintendo Age, which I know you're familiar with, but our
Mm-hmm.
listeners might not be. And yeah, it was just all things and anything regarding like collecting, specifically around NES and other Nintendo stuff too. But I feel like there was a huge influence, a huge focus on NES stuff. Anyway, that for me was my introduction to homebrew. And I tell the story often to buddies and friends. That's the same thing, right? Buddies and friends. But anyway,
Yeah.
I specifically joined Nintendo Age to buy a Kahan game that was being released called Sneak and Peek. I somehow stumbled across RetroZone at the time, Retro USB. I stumbled across their site and I saw that they were releasing this game that had pixelated art, and I'm like, oh, that kind of feels like black box art-ish, but that's a cool colored cart. Like, what is this? Is that a game that I missed out? Like, what's happening? I click on it, read through it, and then find out that in order to pre-order one, you have to join this forum. And I was a little skeptical. I had been going by a different screen name up until Nintendo Age, where I decided to change it up, and I went from being Drumma 503 to Toshi 503 because I wasn't sure about this site. I was like, "Is this spammy? I don't know, but I'm gonna take my chances because I really want this cart." And so I signed up. I get the cart, and that was really my first introduction to homebrews. You know, I popped the game in, and I'm seeing that this is like a game that was, just manually made by someone who now I've become really good friends with Kevin, just over the years. But like at the time, it just blew my mind. I didn't know who he was or what was going on. And so anyway, that was my introduction to getting into the homebrew scene. And then from there, the rest was history. You know, it's just through networking, seeing other people's work, being inspired by their work, to then also wanting to contribute and be part of this environment and this community. And so that's kind of what led me into some of the other areas. That's kind of how like Surge and the Holograms happened too, or Sergio and the Holograms. That was by means of it was a couple of things, but I was making YouTube videos at the time. But once I discovered Nintendo Age, I realized, oh, there's a platform here. There's like people who would be excited to hear, video game covers of these games that we all love. And so then I got into making YouTube videos of like these one man band covers of like Mega Man, Contra, Ninja Gaiden, and so forth. But I would always post them on Nintendo Age, and the support was always really sweet from everybody. So it made it really fun to be doing stuff like that. And then that kind of led to like a different path where one day I was hanging out with a friend He was also part of Nintendo Age, which is how I met him. There's a whole story with that too. I was selling a Virtual Boy. I'll make this quick. I was selling a Virtual Boy on Nintendo Age as well. He reaches out. He wants to buy it. We meet up at a Starbucks. This is all like in the Bay Area in California. This is where this is happening. And then that very day, he's like, dude, so you're a collector, right? You're also on Nintendo Age. Dude, like, why don't you want to come hang out at my place? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I just met you, but let's hang out because we're about video games, right? And so sure enough, like, he had a massive collection himself, and it was just really cool to see and be, associated with like-minded folks who were just as excited about collecting as I was. And so anyway, that same friend, I think this must have been like maybe a couple of years later. We're hanging out and he's like, Serge, check this out, man. I got this prototype. I forget which game he said it was. It was like Mega Man prototype or something that's like, not easy to get and, would have cost a lot of money. He's like, check this out, man. I'm going to pop. No, he said it was Stadium Events prototype. And I was like, my jaw dropped. And I'm like, what, dude? You got to be kidding me. How? Like, that's impossible. And he's like, no, just check this out. Shows me the cart. I'm like, oh my God, this looks legit. He pops it in, and it's Rick Astley. I got Rick rolled, man. Like, I got Rick rolled hard. But in that same moment, my mind was blown because it was a short clip of Never Gonna Give You Up. It was like 10 seconds long, 15 seconds long, but it was digital audio. Like, it was a recording. And I was like, hold up. First of all, I'm pissed off at you, dude. Like, that was really messed up, man. Like, you really, really pulled on my emotions, man, here. I still love you, but I'm angry. Anyway, that's also really dope. Like, holy shit. Like, I do apologize. Are we allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Okay. And so my mind was blown. And so then it was from that day forward, and I'm like, hey, like, I started asking questions. Could we do a song? Could it actually be like a few songs? Wait, could it actually be an album, like on a cart? And so sure enough, like, that led to what we now have, which is A Winner Is You. And the person I had reached out to at the time, I had been a big fan of their work, and that was Shiru. And I don't know what it was. It was like, I just knew in my heart, I'm like, I know that Shiru can make this happen because the stuff that he makes is just insane. Like, they're beautifully made. They look amazing. I have a hunch that, he'd be able to do something like this. So I brought it up to him and I was like, hey, I make these YouTube covers. I love doing, like video game covers, and I want to make an album and put it on a cart. Like, how are you doing? What's up? And we get to know each other. We're chit chatting. And then he says, yeah, like, I can totally do something like that, but we got to find someone that can do the hardware. And I was like, huh. And he's like, why don't you, I think Retro USB, I think they might be able to because they make amazing things too. So then I reached out to Retro USB and I'm like, yo, I want to make this kind of art, but we need the hardware. We need someone that can make something like this. And I forget who it was that I got, because at the time someone was handling like customer inquiries. And I think it might have been, was it Mod? I don't know who it was. Someone was like, yo, I love your work. I love the stuff you put on YouTube. Yes, I'm gonna pass this information on to Brian. I was like, sweet. And then, through some talking and chit chatting, Brian was like, yeah, I'd love to do that. That sounds really cool. Let's do it. And then that's how that happened. So then we got together, we had a little private forum that we were exchanging ideas, and maybe we could do it this way, maybe we could do it that way. Let's do this, let's do that. And so then the whole thing just came together. And then that's how A Winner Is You happened in, like, was it like 2014, I think we started it like late 2013, took about a year of like R&D and figuring stuff out. And I think by 2015 it was released. But yeah, anyway, so that's how that happened. And that's just A Winner Is You. And then once that project ended, and by the way, you guys, I think right now I'm giving you now my background so you guys know like what I was involved in. So now after that was released, I started asking myself, well, what's another cool thing we could do? Something that could be pushing boundaries and limitations. I really wanted to follow the spirit of A Winner Is You and what had happened there. And so then I was like, yo, like, could we do like video and audio? And of course, Shira was like, yeah, we totally do it, man. Like, let's do it. I was like, all right, sweet. And then, reaching out to Brian, I'm like, hey, Brian, we're going to do, digital video and audio. Are you down for that? He's like, yeah, we could just use the same boards and we could, yeah, we'll figure this out. And so sure enough, working with Shiru, he's just a genius. It's all I can, like, I can't say like, there's just, yeah, he's an amazing guy. Super, super sweet, and just a genius when it comes to software development in general. And so yeah, no, just the fact that he made it happen. He pretty much had this crazy idea as to how he was going to make it happen. So we discussed, we tested things out, and I was able to do testing on my end. Fortunately, I had a. Do you remember the Copy NES being around? Like,
Oh,
are you familiar with the Copy NES by any chance, or?
I mean, I know I've heard the name, but I don't think I really actually know it well at
So
all.
it was just a tool that Retro USB had to be able to dump ROMs like from cartridges. It
Hmm.
was their version of gosh, what's the most modern one that we have today?
Oh,
Like I don't know, kind of like an epilogue, like what you would see for like Game Boy or Super Nintendo stuff like that.
okay.
Yeah, but this was for the NES anyway. So I happened to have one, and so this was needed in order to work with these completely custom mappers and custom ROMs that like would there's no way they would work otherwise without the proper hardware and without the proper tools to flash it. So development on this stuff really came together quickly between Shiru and I, and then yeah, and so then a Kickstarter was launched for you are error. Sorry, I'm like trying to remember the names of them. A Winner Is You, you are error, and yeah, and so I guess that's history there. That was like the first full motion video and digital audio cart that was capable of being put on actual hardware. Prior to that, some people were able to achieve like a little, like some full motion video, but just through emulators and through, yeah, it was purely emulators. I don't think anyone had achieved getting it fully functioning on hardware. Not just on a cart, but the fact that the cart itself doesn't require modifications from a console either. That was
Right.
also, I think, like a big selling point for A Winner Is You as well. The fact that it was digital audio, but you didn't have to mod the NES. You didn't have to do any kind of modification. You just pop it in and it plays. And so that was the same with You Are Error, in the sense that like I wanted it to make sure that you could just pop this in and it's going to play, no modifications. I don't want to trouble you with that. I want you to just enjoy it as it is. And so that's how that happened. Gosh, what else? Okay, in the last part here, I think you mentioned Softenary Studios. Softenary
Yes.
Studios has kind of surfaced under well, Softenary, the name itself, is a name that I came up with shortly after I think the A Winner Is You stuff that I had done. It was kind of in between that and You Are Error. I was doing a lot more web development then at the time, and I was just using the name Softenary. And I thought of it as software and like core code binary, kind of thing
Hmm.
on off. Like, and so I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Software binary, let's call it Softenary. And that could be like my web development name that I'm going to use to, do some web dev on the side. And so I like the name. So then I decided to stick with that, and that became Softenary Studios. And I gave it that studios at the end just because it's more than just web development now. I'm kind of getting into more publishing of games and yeah. Anyway, so that's how Softenary Studios happened. Born from web dev, but now transitioned into just, I guess, software in general. And coding stuff in general. Let's see what else. There was another question in there. I don't know. How about that for now?
Yeah. So, of course, there's no way to disentangle your homebrew work from your musical work either.
Ooh,
And so, what are your beginnings as a musician? Like, where did that come from? How long have you been playing?
yeah.
What else? What's the full range of instruments that you play?
Yeah. Well, I'll start with where it started for me as a musician as a kid. One of the first, I recall one of the first moments in my life where I listened to something and I wanted to hear it back because I just liked the way it sounded. Um, I think there's a reason why a lot of people like Mega Man 2 Dr. Wily's theme, which is why that was my first cover, like, wait, like many, many, many
Mm.
years later. I first heard that as a kid, playing it at a friend's house, and I was just thinking to myself, like, wow, like this is really cool. Like, I'd love to hear this again, like on a CD or something, or just by any other means. And I realized then that I'm like, I like music. I like the way it sounds. Like, I like what this is doing to me as I listen to it. And I can't say that I got into music without mentioning one of my childhood friends, one of my best friends growing up, this dude named Mike Drake. He had such a huge impact on my life in the sense that he introduced me to punk rock, which is really what got me into playing instruments. Let's see now. I got introduced to like The Offspring, Bad Religion, Pennywise. Like we're talking like maybe like a bunch of these like late nine or sorry, yeah, like early '90s punk bands, kind of stuff. And he just had just a plethora of like of all this, and so he really got me interested in punk, and from punk I got more interested in wanting to play instruments. Started off as a drummer. I even played in school band in like seventh grade and eighth grade. But started off as a drummer. I started learning guitar actually through my buddy Mike Drake because he was taking guitar lessons. And so every time he would learn some riffs, he would show me. So I was kind of indirectly getting guitar lessons, but not really. I was just kind of learning whatever Mike had learned. I was picking up on that. Him and I started a couple of punk bands with a few friends in the neighborhood. Let's see. And then from there, I think I went more full fledged into just getting involved in punk bands. And writing songs for said punk bands because I played a little bit of guitar. It was easier for me to come up with riffs, even though I wanted to drum. And a lot of these bands, all that stuff eventually switched, where I primarily focused on guitar and less on drumming because to me, I really liked being able to come up with the ideas and executing them. And I felt guitar gave me more of that opportunity than drums did. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love drums. It's my first instrument. I'll always love it. I just felt that guitar was going to let me express myself a little more through melodies and harmonic stuff. And let's see what else. Yeah, so that's kind of how that happened for me. And then through that, I always had friendly competition amongst friends. We always were like everyone would be like, "Hey, I can play drums. Hey, I can play bass. Hey, I can play piano. Yeah, well, so can I. I can do that too." And so like we'd always be trying to show each other up, with these new riffs. I learned this new thing on piano. I learned this new thing on drums. I learned this new thing on guitar. And so I think through that, it wasn't just me. It would be me, my buddy Mike. I had this other dude named Jose growing up, this dude named Andrew, and we all were doing this. We were all learning separate, like different instruments in a way, trying to show each other up. But at the same time, like for the love of it too, because it was so much fun to play and to like, figure out these instruments. And I think that's what propelled me into becoming a multi-instrumentalist
Hmm.
was because of them. If it wasn't for them, like pushing me to like wanting to get better because I need to show them up too. Like, like I don't know if I would have taken that route. I might have just stuck it out as a drummer. But no, I mean, it was through them that like, I really wanted to open up these new doors that they were, indirectly opening up for me. Yeah. And so that's how that happened with the multi instrumentation. And so I think at my core, I think you had asked which ones do I play. So guitar, bass, piano, drums, the ukulele, I sing. And then I dabbled with a few extra instruments outside of that in order to make these YouTube videos where some violin was involved. French horn, a flute. What else was there? There was like timpanis involved. There's like more orchestral stuff that I didn't dabble with too much, but learned how to play them for the sake of making videos. I am a music major, so I did eventually go to school to get my degree in music, because that was such a huge part of my life that I knew I wanted to do something, a lot of stuff with music at the time. And let's see. So I did learn, how to play not just from the heart, but to understand theoretically like what's happening musically too. Like understanding harmonic structure, rhythmic structure, and being able to articulate myself now through theoretically, to actually tell you what's happening because I know what to call it now. I thought that was super helpful. I don't feel like getting a music degree, like, I mean, I think it did have an influence and it did shape my playing quite a bit, but I feel like I came into it with the skills I already had. It just helped me refine them. And help me like, yeah, call things what they are. Yeah, so that's how that happened. There was another question in there. I'm trying to remember what you had asked. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's what I have.
I need to break them up and not do like five or six of them at once.
It's all good.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so, um, you've talked about your background as a musician and
Mm,
how some of your first projects, you have A Winner's You and how that morphed into You Are Error. You also
mhm.
have some of your first games, which are Ninja 1 and 2, which are these series
Yeah.
of mini games. How did you get into game making?
So yeah, that one was kind of a neat one because the way Ninja came about, I had already actually done A Winner Is You. That had just happened. And there was someone on Nintendo Age that was looking to collaborate with somebody else in making a game. And so I reached out. I was like, "Hey, I'm super interested in helping out with this project. By any means, like maybe some level design, maybe some character design, and definitely music. I'll make music for you." And I'm thinking at this point that that they're going to be using Family Tracker, because I had already been practicing a little bit with it. I kind of knew how to use Family Tracker just a bit. And so they added me to their project. And it was just myself and this person who was like out in Italy somewhere. And we spent a summer making Ninja Part 1. But the way the game was coded, it was using BASIC. And we used like a compiler at the time. I'm trying to remember the exact process of it, but it was written, a majority of it was actually written in hex, using hex values. And I had no idea what hex even was. Like it was base 16. Like, what the hell is base 16? What's a hex? Like, I have no idea, dude. Like, but it was through working with this person that they like sent me like handwritten like manuals that they just kind of put together as to how to understand their code,
Wow.
how to do what you need to do, how to use their sound engine that they built from scratch, so that I could put my music in. And so this was probably the craziest part of the entire project, was writing music for the project. I used a separate program. I think it was called Aria, and it's just MIDI. You just, drag and drop notes. I did that so that I could articulate my ideas and have it in one place, right? I have my square one, I have my square two, I have my triangle, and then I have my drums, which would have been my noise channel. I can't just copy and drop this in somewhere. I'm gonna have to articulate or translate note for note everything that I've written into this language. And so the way it worked is there would essentially be two. This is for you programmers out there. There were two arrays that I had to drop hex values into. The crazy part is that each index would match a rhythmic value on top. It was only rhythm would go up top, and at the bottom had to be the pitch value that was going to then be connected to said rhythmic value. So I had to not just write two different arrays for the music, but they were entirely separated, where one was just the rhythm and the other one was just the pitch. And so you can imagine keeping track of this using straight up text, like a notepad. I wasn't using like a really nice code editor or anything like that. I was just using a notepad and I'd open up the source code and I'd go in there and I was literally like trying to keep track of things by using just a return carriage, just hitting return and trying to make it look kind of neat by using space, literally like space bar. And so the process was insanely tedious. But fortunately, I learned how to compile the code and so that I could run the game so that I could hear what I had just written. But you could imagine that the process in order to hear this stuff, especially when there was a bug or there was a wrong note, like I had to be very like okay, that was a bad note. Oh gosh, okay. I'm like trying to look at these hex values to be like, okay, that was quarter, eighth, 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 eighth. Okay, there's a quarter right there. Okay. And like, oh man, like it was insane. I know it sounds like nuts, but for me, it was such a fun process. I really enjoyed like the bug hunting, the troubleshooting, writing the stuff out in hex value. Like there was something about it that I really enjoyed. And so it was through that process that I'm like, I figured I'm going to get into coding. And that's kind of how that led me into web development because I wanted to do something for like a slightly more modern platform coding wise, but I still really enjoyed what I had done in that project. So anyway, that's how Ninja One came about and what it did for me and the kind of involvement I had in it. When the game was said and done, the person didn't have a means to publish the game. I don't know what their goal was originally with the game, like how they were planning on releasing it. But when it was all said and done, they're like, "Hey, I really appreciated just working with you. I had a blast with you. It was great to share ideas. Hey, how about this? Like, I'm just gonna gift you the game because I really love all the work that you did with this too." So I was like, "Are you sure? Like, you don't have to do that. Like, they're like, no, 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 no. It's yours. You can have it. Like, just enjoy the game. Like, again, I love the work that we did together. I like what you did for it as well. So, Ninja's yours." I was like, "Oh my gosh, dude, thank
Wow.
you so much. Like, geez, like that's insane. Okay." And so then, once I had Ninja, then I was like, well, I want to publish this. Like, how do I do that? I had seen Kahan put out some games. I had seen other people put out some games, and so I had Nintendo Age like literally like at my fingertips as a resource to figure this stuff out. And so, yeah, reading forums, asking people questions, what kind of board should I use, considering that the game was an NROM mapper or an NROM map, and like yeah. And then so I figured out, where to source shells, where to get some labels, boards themselves, the sleeves, the styrofoams, the boxes, and the manuals. I spent like another, I don't know, 3 or 4 months just putting together the artwork for the game. And I think this is where I got more involved with Vince. At the time, he's now running CTWC's Classic Tetris World Championship, but he was also doing manuals and boxes at the time. And so I got all my boxes, my manuals, and my labels through Vince, actually. And so we've been friends ever since as well. By the way, side note, you guys, anyone that is keeping up with CTWC, do you mind if I do a plug, Sean? Is that okay?
Absolutely. Go right ahead.
Okay. CTWC, I'm performing live this Sunday. I'm just doing the opening anthem for Classic Tetris World Championship, which is the ba ba da da ba da da, right? So like what is that? The A theme on the Game Boy version of Tetris. But anyway, I do it live. It's a rock version. Check it out. I think it starts at 10 a.m. I believe it's 9 or 10 a.m. Just double check with CTWC. They'll have it up on their site. But anyway, that's happening this Sunday. And let's see what else. Yeah, so that was Ninja One. The following summer, I wanted to do a follow-up to Ninja One because I just did a small release on Nintendo Age. I think I might have done like a limited like 5 or 6 cartridge run that was specific to PRGE at the time. So the only way you could get like this limited version that had, I think, a different track on the game to make it different. It had different music. on one of the events or a couple of the events. Anyway, yeah, you got to go to PRGE to pick up a copy, and I think I only released like 5 of them. So I don't know. I didn't mention that to you, Sean, but there's that one floating around.
Oh, wow.
I know you and I had talked about, yeah, like finding Ninja 1 and 2, as these individual cards. But yeah, there's that one. So just keep that in mind. If yeah, I don't even know where to find. I don't even know if I have a copy. Honestly, I think I sold mine. But anyway, so there's that. And then Ninja 2 came about. I did the same thing. It was where I reached out to the same person I was working with. But this time I'm like, hey, I actually want to pay you. I'm still going to do the music and do, level design. I'm still going to do, some character design. And I still want to do that stuff. But I'll still pay you for your time in helping me put this together. And so they're like, yeah, totally, let's do it. And so then we made Ninja 2 that following summer. And so once Ninja 2 was out, then there was like a single like individual release for Ninja 2 on Nintendo Age. That I believe was the only run that I had done was the Nintendo Age version. And then shortly after that, that's how Ninja 1 and 2 came about. I reached out to Shiru and I'm like, hey, can we make like a 2-in-1? Like I have both ROMs or both NROM. Yeah, can we do this? He's like, yeah, totally, I got you. Bam! We got both games on a 1 ROM, and that's how Ninja 1 and 2 came about. And that's still available. Here's another plug. That's still available if you guys are interested on my website. It's sergioelisondo.com. I don't know how many copies I have left. I'm down to only like, I don't know, 15, 20 boards. They're using GT ROM boards now, so I guess we technically could source a few more. But anyway, that's besides the point. Let's see what else. Yeah, I think that's how Ninja 1 and 2 came about.
Okay, I'll have to ask Ferris about the PRG copies. He seems to know where all
Oh,
the special ones have gone to. I'm sure he even has
yeah.
one.
Yeah, I definitely ask him. I'm sure he will know.
But yeah, so I know, I guess for the sake of like sharing with everybody else, like when I saw you at Midwest Gaming Classic this year, I had recently tracked down a copy of the Nintendo Age releases for Ninja 1 and 2, which have all these beautiful sort of extra goodies included in it, as well as this beautiful artwork from your partner. Like, can you tell more about like where
Oh yeah.
you found all these pieces, how you had the idea to include it all?
So the way that came about was on Nintendo Age, what would happen is whenever somebody had a release, there became this like tradition where people would include some kind of like little extra item or a little plushie, just kind of something to kind of go along with the game itself that they were releasing. I kind of took that and like, yeah, I kind of went a little bit like over the edge with it in the sense that like I really wanted to have like a lot of really cool just stuff that represented the game and what it was about and like but just it's also part of like the presentation, like I wanted it to just visually feel good, looking at it. And I had asked my partner at the time, I'm like, hey, I know you're an artist. Would you be open to making some custom art that's specifically ninja related and it's only for ninja? Like, would you be open to that? And they're like, yeah, totally, let's do it. And so they got involved in making this like really beautiful mural, custom art for Ninja 1 and for Ninja 2. There's actually 2 of them. And yeah, so that's how that came about. But that was a lot of work. I do recall them working on the art itself for like, I don't know. I think it was like almost a month. It was several weeks for sure.
I could believe it. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
it's stunning. It was so cool, and I think the originals are they're hanging right now at her mom's house. So that's actually really cool. Every time we go and visit, I always see them up there. But yeah, so that's how that came about. But so on again the Nintendo Age, we had the tradition. We did added a bunch of items, and so that's yeah that's how that came about. It was just through a Nintendo Age tradition.
I miss those. Um, so let's get to the game at hand. And
Mm.
correct me if I get the pronunciation messed up. Again, I know
No, you're
we
good.
practiced it before we started the proper interview part. So Kurohi. Um, so let's talk about that. So there's so many interesting things about it, just
Mhm.
generally, but also as far as how it relates to your background, and I'll break them up into bite-sized pieces. So, I mean, what's the
Yeah.
inspiration behind that game? Like, where did it come
Mhm.
from? What is the significance of its name?
Yeah. So Kurohi, gosh, where do I start with it? Originally, I'll start here. Originally, it was the character was different in my mind originally. It wasn't who it is now. It wasn't her. It was actually a little demon. Um, think of gosh, what's that NES game made by Capcom? It's like Gargoyle 2 or something like that. Like
Oh, the Gargoyle Quest.
yeah, there you go, there you go. That one. So I wanted something more like that, where not the gameplay, but rather like the character, like a
Hmm.
kind of a cute little demon just running around, and the story was a little different too. I remember when I started hashing out the story, which was actually I started hashing this story out back in 2020. It was during the pandemic. Um, I had the idea of like um, she has this thing. We'll fast forward from the little demon because that kind of changed pretty quickly. Like I was like, well, the little demon idea is kind of cute. Nah, like let's do chibi anime. Like I know, like make her look cute, but also have her be really kick ass and just be super tough. Like that's okay. That's the personality, and that's the kind of character I want. And so it quickly shifted over to what she is now. But this idea actually, again, started during the pandemic. She has this thing called a star heart, and the idea is that she wakes up, she's somewhere, she doesn't know what's going on, and she all of a sudden sees this massive ass demon that she has to fight. But she knows, like the way she is, she's spicy, she's fiery, she's down to fight, she's not going to ask any questions. Let's just get down. But right before that happens, she starts to feel something going on inside of her, and she sees that her star heart, it's this thing called a star heart, comes out of her chest in a very magical kind of way, not like in a gruesome kind of way. Comes out in a magical kind of way, and it just explodes. It's just like breaks into shards. And that's kind of where the story begins. It's because she needs to find said Starheart fragments in order to regain her power. But we still don't know what's going on. Like, where are we? Like, how did I get here? Like, what? Starheart? Like, wait, hold on. Like, what's happening? We are, we're meant to be this kind of confused when we start the game, so that as we go through the game, you start to figure out who you are. Who is Kurohi? Where did she come from? How did she end up here? What is here? What is this
Hmm.
place? And so all these questions, I made it so that they're gradually being answered as you interact with NPCs, because that is where the core of the story is. It's through interaction with these NPCs. Although the game is primarily Metroidvania platformer. Yeah, the core of the story is going to be either talking with these NPCs in this Metrovania setting, or talking with them in the Legend of Zelda like overview overhead kind of set.
Right.
Yeah, and so those are like the two core areas where you can actually uncover the lore, the mystery behind of where you are, who you are, what has happened, what is going to happen if you don't do A, B, and C, and stuff like that. And to that, there was an expansion because of the Kickstarter that was just ran about a month ago, um, or it ended about a month ago. There was an expansion to now include point and click, and the point and click aspect is to also expand on the story and the lore, but now by means of clicking on things to gather more information. You're not just walking up to an NPC now. to get information. You're going to click on this weird looking book in a bookshelf inside one of the homes you visited. And because it looks, not right, you're like, hey, something's off with this. I'm going to click on this. And then bam, you're going to now learn about something entirely new that will be consistent and or congruent with that part of the story or that time in the story, so that it feels a little more cohesive too, so it's not just too scattered. And try to keep I guess my goal is to just try to keep the story cohesive, so that the tidbits I do feed to the player is consumable. It's not overwhelming information where you're like, I'm not going to remember all that, dude. That's ridiculous. Like, not like that at all. It's simple, but complex story-wise enough so that it's both exciting, but again, it's consumable. You can make sense of what's going on. I know. I feel like I dove more into like the game itself and like all from talking about how it stemmed and how it started. But
Yeah.
yeah. That's gosh, yeah. Anyway, that's how it came about. So Kurohi,
Yeah.
the name Kurohi. The reason why her name is Kurohi. That means the kanji actually means black for Kuro, and he is fire. So her name is actually Black Fire. But instead of just using Black Fire, I'm like, I think it would sound kind of cool in Japanese, because she's also going to be an anime style, right? She's going to be chibi anime. I feel like it would just fit really well. I also speak a little bit of Japanese. I read and write some of it too. So I figured, I don't know, it would be fun to see it like this. And I think players will also appreciate, the style and, the fact that it's in Japanese. Like, yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of how that happened. Yeah, and how her name kind of came about. It's supposed to match her personality. She's spicy. That's all I gotta say.
I like it. I mean, that just makes me want to dance around with my questions and ask you. So, do you feel any personal identification with her and her spiciness?
I, to an extent, yes. I think there's a level of her spiciness that I see a lot of myself in, but it's more along the lines of like a spicy determination, for lack of better words. I
Hmm.
feel like that's something that she embodies as a character, and that's something that I feel like I strongly identify with. Someone who's just determined. I'm here to just get shit done. Like, I'm gonna make this happen one way or another. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm not stuck here. Like, and just having that like this like hunger to just like move ahead and to just forge to just move forward. Like, something about that I feel like I strongly identified with, and I wanted her to have that. That's the character I want her to be. And so I wanted a lot of that to be conveyed through how she is, who she fights, and how she just doesn't back down from whatever battle gets put in front of her. There's no giving up. That's just those words just don't exist in her vocabulary. And like, and so yeah, that's I would say to an extent, yeah, I definitely do identify with some of that spiciness.
And do you feel like there's some kind of star heart of your own that's like fragmented that you're
Oh man.
assembling, or is that just some kind of like fire of who you are? It's like, I don't know, it's like your music and how it's like all the different instruments and the multi instrumentality.
Oh man. Yeah, well, that's deep, man. That is deep. I would say, gosh, maybe maybe we all experience some of that, trying to find like these pieces in life that, whether you're feeling complete now, or it's something that you're looking for in life to find that completeness. I don't know, in whatever it may be in life. Like, yeah, I feel like for me, I yeah, man, that this is gonna be a tough one to answer, because yeah, there are aspects that I feel that, like there's parts of my star heart, I feel like them, they're a little fragmented. And then I don't want to get too sentimental, but like, I've lost people in my life, and so there's aspects of that star heart that feels a little fragmented, but I'm not missing a piece. Like I'm not it's not lost per se. It just feels a little fragmented. And so maybe there's part of me where as I go through life, I do things to find that fulfillment, to find, sometimes that little extra push of happiness, I would say I'm a pretty positive guy, but like anybody else, like there are moments where like, I get down on myself or like, there's just tough things to get through. And you have to find a way to get through it. Like, but how? Like, how am I going to do this? Like, this is, oh man, I'm so overwhelmed. Like, ah, and so it's just like, I guess remembering that, there is this part of me that, I have this strength inside of me. I do have the ability to push ahead and to get things done and to make dreams a reality. And so I feel like in many aspects, that star heart kind of represents losing some of that, but then finding it within yourself to regain it, to just push ahead, to find those pieces because they're still there. There's that part of you is still there. So don't lose it. Don't forget about it. I don't know. You know what I'm
Wow.
saying? Like,
Yeah, I like it. Um, and I guess the lighter version of that question is you talked about how there's a lot of like a blend of genres and inspirations
Mhm.
between the Metroidvania and the Legend of Zelda, and you have the point and click. So Kahan's ears are burning somewhere for that one. And with
Yeah.
the Star Heart, is that also sort of a homage to Kirby's Adventure?
Oddly enough, no, well, I love Kirby. Don't get me wrong. Like, absolutely love Kirby. I think the Star Heart in this case was just more like an ability to showcase her heart,
Hmm.
but in a more like less of an anatomy kind of way. Anatomical, I think is the word. I can't
Hmm.
think right now. But yeah, but to just kind of show like there's this heart of hers, it's like almost like part of her soul. I
Mm.
just decided to call it a star heart because it looks like a star and it's coming out of her chest, so it's like a star heart. But yeah, not quite a homage to Kirby. But again, don't get me wrong, I love Kirby. Such a great game. HAL makes just amazing games. Like starting from when they first started producing Kirby. Total side note. I am a huge Kirby fan. But yes, yeah, I would say yeah, it not Kirby related, but yeah, it kind of has its own meaning.
Okay. Um, and so something I've been dying to ask you. So up to this point,
Mhm.
a lot of your work in homebrewing is with the NES, and here
Mhm.
with Kurohi,
Mhm.
you transitioned to the Game Boy. What facilitated that console jump? And
Mhm.
has there been a change in like the tools you're using? And I guess I assume there are. Like, what are the changes in tools you've used
Yeah.
to
So
make that happen?
yeah, absolutely. So there is so the engine that's being used is GB Studio. It's an amazing engine. There's so much amazing support behind it. It's a very beautiful UI, very intuitive. It's a very an excellent way to create if-else statements within this very nicely laid out UI. And so I think for me, the transition here was I wanted to experiment using this engine. We have other engines out there, right? We have like Unreal Engine, we have just a bunch of other stuff. This one in particular caught my attention because it still had that like 8-bit 8-bit fire to it, right?
Hmm.
But it's Game Boy. Now, I've always been a massive fan of Game Boy. I mean, I think I don't want to like age myself. I was pretty young. I was a kid. I was still a kid, but I remember I got a copy of um Pokemon Blue like on the actual Game Boy as a kid. I remember this would have been like I don't know because it was still on shelves, but they were like phasing it out because we're talking like
Hmm.
maybe mid 90s,
Yeah.
mid to late 90s actually. I take that back. It was late 90s because Pokemon wasn't until like what, 96, I think, in the United States or something like that. I think it
Yeah,
was a little
it was
before.
something like that.
Yeah, so the game then, this must have been like 98 or like 99, something like that. Anyway, 20-ish years ago, I picked up this copy of Game Boy, sorry, Pokemon Blue on Game Boy. And then I just fell in love with like the aesthetic, the way it played, just everything about it. I'm like, oh, this is so kick-ass. Like, and so then I ended up picking up a couple more games with some lunch money that I had saved up. And so then that's where my love for Game Boy started, was through that. And so then when I came across this engine, I'm like, oh my gosh, like totally, like I want to. Okay, I'm gonna make a game for the Game Boy. You know, whether it's Game Boy Color or Game Boy, I'm cool either way. Just gonna make a game. And I know that there's other tools that could be used for the NES, because I know there's like, NES Maker and stuff like that. But I wanted to try something different. And I've always had a lot of love for Game Boy. And so then that was kind of, I guess, like the reason behind it was just, I wanted to try something a little different. The engine looked excellent. And so then I went that route.
Okay. As far as your work on this game, what are some of the unique fun aspects in developing this one compared to your other projects?
Well, the other projects revolved around working with source code, and like me trying to learn as best as I can what's going on. And keep in mind, like all of this stuff was happening pre AI, right? So like you couldn't just like drop some code into some LLM and be like, yo, help me understand this. And add to it, or do something with it. Like that didn't exist. That didn't. So it was like reading documentation, trying to understand what's happening, straight from the developer to like the person who's working on the software. So there was that aspect of it, right? And then it was seeing how this engine was just, it has some tools built into it. It allows you to craft things in a very, just in a very, I want to say, intuitive way. And so that's kind of yeah, that's what enticed me to start developing in this engine. But again, like most other engines that exist out there, again, like I know I've mentioned like Unreal Tournament, sorry, Unreal Engine. The writing that you looks like Unreal Tournament, right? Like it's like that is what they did. They took that game, they made Unreal Engine. By the way, I love that game. It's such a good game. Unreal Tournament was a lot of fun to play on the Dreamcast. Such a good game. But I digress. Yeah, I would say that's it right there for that one.
What are some of the unique challenges that you faced, and is there a moment in your programming where you got stuck, and how did you work around it?
So there's a lot of really good resources online. There's a huge community. There's a ton, I will say, really really good YouTube videos that absolutely help with this stuff. It's just really amazing. Excellent tutorials. Everything from, understanding how to create like a heads up display to leveraging plugins and getting things locked into the engine to um, how to tile something out so that you can start creating these levels and to start creating the foundation, the background for what's going to be literally the background of your game. There was just a lot of amazing a lot of amazing resources out there to leverage these tools. So that's the way I went about it.
Um, and so the Kickstarter for this was insanely popular. I'm looking up the page for it right now, and I don't know which is cooler, the fact that you achieved uh, 1,748% of your initial funding goal, or for a sort of demon anime creature, you have 666 backers.
Look, I didn't plan that. I don't know. I don't know how that happened. But yes, right now the back account is at 666. It's crazy. And it's perfect for Kurohi and where she's actually kind of at in this game. I don't want to reveal too much, but yeah, we'll start to kind of see this environment that we're kind of in. But yeah, no, I'm absolutely humbled, and I'm super thankful to everyone who supported, to everyone who gave Kurohi love and was just, yeah, was just there to support. I honestly did not expect it to do as well as it did. I was going to be super happy with, like, you know, 150 backers. If I could achieve that, oh man, I'm super, super happy. Even 100 backers, I'd have been like, all right, that was a cool run, excellent. But for it to be where it's at now, like 666, I mean, I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
it's just, I'm super, again, super thankful and very humbled by everybody's support for the game. And I'm super excited to deliver this game. I'm really looking forward to seeing people play it. I do hope, people make videos and posts. One thing that I got a chance to do, I'm going to just go off on a little bit of a tangent here.
Do it.
I was over at MGC when I had Kurohi out on a table. It was really fun for me to watch people play the game, to see what they were doing, what they were jumping towards, what they were avoiding, how they handled the enemies, everything about the psychology of, like, how they interacted with Kurohi to me was just like a lot of fun. And so I'm hoping to see that at a much bigger scale now, um, moving forward, once the game gets into people's hands. Because I do want to see how a speedrunner handles it. I do want to see when, someone who's not at all a platformer slash Metroidvania kind of player, how do they
Mm.
handle it? How do you handle the transitions? Like, how are you handling the lore? How are you handling, like, is it fun for you? Is it a little boring? Like, I want to know, like, and so that kind of feedback to me is just really exciting. And I just feel like the interaction between video game and a player, um, there's something about it. There's something about video games and what it does to me as a player. And so I really, and it's fun for me. It's exciting. I love it. I love that escapism that it provides when you're playing a game. And I'm just hoping that Kurohi can do that for, all of the backers and everyone who supported. And then for future supporters and for future players, like, I hope that they're able to experience it that way too.
Absolutely. So I guess I feel terrible always asking this question because it's like you're in the middle of like working on this game and you're still delivering it. But
Mhm.
do you have anything beyond it on the horizon? Any other projects that you have floating in your head?
I do actually. Without revealing too much, I
Mhm.
do have another BBC game that is essentially done mechanically. It still needs it's got some art in place. But it's finished mechanically. I still, there's still some level design stuff that I need to fix and maybe update some stuff here and there. I definitely want to add, like, a lot more art to the game. There's aspects that I really got to do something about certain backgrounds. I really got to do I have to develop the lore for that one. I haven't even written the lore of it. All I have right now for it, again, it's fully playable though. Like, there's bosses, there's enemy, there's enemy, what do you call it? Enemy logic in place. And so, yeah, like, you could pretty much play the game now from start to finish. But like I said, there's no lore in place. I don't even have music in place. I don't have any SFX in place. Like, I don't have any of that in place. I need to create all that. And so, yeah. So there, to answer your question, yes, there is another game in the works. And so I think once Kurohi is all said and done, and all the porting is finished, and the game is fully, I guess, fully on the shelves now,
Mhm.
I'm going to be developing that next one. And if people, really liked Kurohi, they're going to get something that they're going to also love here. Yeah,
Awesome.
so there is another one.
What are some of the homebrew games out there or in the works that are exciting you right now?
Oh my gosh. That's a good question. there are a ton of projects that I see, like all the time. Gosh, I'm trying to think. Well, one that really just excited me. I'm gonna draw to like an older title, but I remember one of the first homebrews that I saw that just blew my mind with how it played, how smooth it was Super Bat Puncher.
Mm-hmm.
That one was just like, man, that was just like mechanically to me was like, I don't know. It just felt so good. Like the way they calculated the jumps, like the math behind the velocity of like how quickly you go up, that little bit of hang time, and when you come down, just so balanced. The
Yeah.
speed felt great. The levels felt like it was minimal. It wasn't like exorbitant art, but the way like a tree would fade out into the darkness, like that pixel art, the way it looked, gosh, man, it was just stunning. I loved it. Um, so games like that, like I look at them, not just from like a mechanical and playable standpoint, but then the aesthetic too, you know. The music was fun, the sound effects were great. The little animations, you know, as to how these little sprites would move around, I thought was just like chef's kiss. You know, it was just amazing. But yeah, so games like that I find exciting. Gosh, there's as far as new games go, I'm trying to think of one that just grabs my attention right now. Um, hmm. Well, I was part of this one, so I don't know if like
It's an open question, so you can answer
okay,
however you
okay.
want.
I was part of this one, and this is a shout out to Kahan, shout out to Kevin. But I really did enjoy playing Courier. I wrote the music for that game. I did the music and the sound effects for that game, but like it was just really fun to play. I really loved the aesthetic and just kind of like the overall feel of where you were, what you were doing, and then just dealing with enemies, collecting some money, like to buy some upgrades to move forward in the game because some of these upgrades were needed in order for you to advance. And so yeah, I thought that was really well made, and I did enjoy playing that one a lot. So go check out Courier. Um, let's see what else. Gosh, yeah, no, there's a few others, but yeah, I think I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay. Well, that just makes me think that the next time I'm at MGC and hopefully you're there, I can try and bring the I have one of those the NES versions of Super Bat Puncher with two of the draft levels. So I
Oh,
can bring that for you to try and explore those.
oh, the draft levels.
Yeah,
When?
so like there's the one that Broke Studio has is like the demo that has the two completed levels and the like Kaizo level,
Oh, right,
but
right.
the I think they were trying to raise money when they first made the game, and so they made like I want to say like 20 or 24 NES copies that had like a debugger mode and two extra draft levels. So like they're not very
Oh,
complete. The art's not done, but they're it's like extra stuff that's there. So I'll totally bring that next time for you to play with.
okay. That sounds awesome, man. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, yeah, definitely. That would be really cool to check out. Yeah, I think yeah, again, just like seeing the kind of level of work that goes into those kinds of games and like the kind of love that kind of goes into them, I to me is really kind of like I don't know, like the frosting on the cake, you know, because you can tell that they take pride in their craftsmanship, they take pride in the work that they do, and the stuff that they deliver is just, yeah, I don't know. I feel like that could have been honestly like a licensed title, like that was around back then. And even then, like
100%.
that plays better than a lot of licensed titles that were released. You know, not trying to throw shade to like the NES library. I'm just saying that like it plays so well that to me it felt like it could have been right there like next to you know like a Kirby game or something like that and you
Yeah.
wouldn't feel disappointed because of how well it plays and how it looks. But yeah.
Yeah, completely agree. Is there anything else you want to talk about before I let you go?
Um let's see now. I already plugged CTWC, my performance this Sunday. So for Kurohi, for anyone that's interested, and do you mind if I do this, Sean? Do a little plug at the end here?
Absolutely. Go right ahead.
Okay, okay. For anyone that's interested, the Kickstarter is still up. You can still late pledge for Kurohi. I think there's a handful of tiers that are still available, like the cart only or CIB with soundtrack, which, by the way, the soundtrack of the game itself will be released on, it'll be digitally available, but it will also be on cassette and CD. And that's part of the tier. That's what you end up backing. But yeah, that's still up and available. So for anyone that's interested, there's a trailer there. There's all the art. You can see, what's all in the game there. Let's see. You can check out some of the work I've done musically. You can find, I'm on Spotify and, all these streaming services with my original music as well. That's video game inspired. The album is actually called You Are Error. It's what the digital video and digital audio cart was titled after as well. But yeah, you can listen to some of my music. Just look up Sergio Elisondo. Usually Sergio Holograms is easier to spell for folks. So if you just look up Sergio Holograms, you'll get links to my stuff. And that's one way you can also listen to it. Album is also, on YouTube. You can listen to it there. Gosh, what else? Yeah.
Do your website again. What's the link to that?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. And so if you want to check out some of the other games I have, like Ninja 1 and 2, you can go to myfirstandlastname.com, which is Sergio Elisondo, spelled ELISOND as in dog, .com. So SergioElisondo.com. You can find Ninja 1 and 2 there. And you can also find a link to You Are Error there. I still have some copies available. Keep in mind, when that one is out, when You Are Error is out, I can no longer make any more. Those boards are forever out of production since Retro USB is no longer around. They were the ones that handled the hardware completely, like 100%. This hardware doesn't exist anywhere else. It's completely custom made for the projects that we worked on together. So get a hold of one before they're like fully gone, because yeah, I can't make more. And then what else? Yeah, you can, again, Kurohi, Kurohi. I do have a website for the game itself, and where you can pre-order as well. That, if you take that route, that allows you to do pre-ordering via PayPal. And it works. I've already had backers go that way. Or you just back via the Kickstarter page, and that just does, I think it handles like, I think they do Stripe, which is like regular Visa or whatever you're using to pay for stuff online. I think I don't know what else they handle. But anyway, yeah, so go check it out. Thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate it. And Sean, thank you so much for having me on here.
Oh, thanks so much for being on. I want to thank Sergio for sharing his stories about himself and Kurohi. I want to note that Sergio referenced a gig that was coming up for him, which was June 7th. Obviously, that date is past. But guess what? Sergio plays that show every year, so mark your calendar and make a plan to see him next time. If you missed backing Kurohi on Kickstarter, you can still pre-order the game. Just go to the Kickstarter page and click the button to go to the new page, or go directly to kurohi.com. Thank you for listening, and please join my Discord to grow the community and keep the discussion brewing. If you like MT's art, you can find some to put on yourself in my Etsy store. I'm excited to continue sharing stories from homebrewers across a range of consoles. I hope you continue to enjoy them, as well as MT's playful art and Raftronaut's banger music. In the meantime, in between time, I'm Sean, and I'll see you with another brew.